Hey guys, welcome to the J-Chip Show. My name is J-Chip, and a patron of mine asked me, hey, do you prefer open world games or linear games? And for me, it really depends. I can go either or, and really I don't have a preference when it comes to open world versus linear games. I just like to play games because they're fun. Now, I will say that a really good linear game will more than likely have a very good story. Now, not to say that open world games can't have a good story, there's a lot of them that do, but I feel like the focus of a linear game is for that storytelling. Now, Last of Us 2, you can either take it or leave it. I think the game's fine, but there's one section in the game where it feels like an open world game. You can go into any of the buildings and you can find different items, you can loot shit. There's usually some enemies there. And I questioned, what if the entire game was like this? Would the game have the same impact or not? The freedom to roam around and create your own experiences. You don't have to go from point A to point B. You can literally go wherever you want and create your own stories. This is why I love games like Fallout New Vegas, a game that has objectives, but I can create my own stories and how I get to that objective, or I can just say fuck it and be a bad guy. I think for me, a really good open world game is a bit more appealing than a really good linear game, just because I can create my own stories and my own experiences, though a really good linear game can be amazing. I asked some of my YouTube buddies if they wanted to chime in on this topic, and let's hear what they have to say.
Oh, hi. TCG Wolf here, voicing my opinion on this, and I'm all for open world games. The simple fact of the matter is, I like games where I myself get to create the story, I get to choose where I go, and everything that goes along with it. While a good narrative is interesting every once in a while, I much prefer to be the creator of my own stories. I also think open world games open up some of the greatest creative people of all time. Taking Skyrim as the perfect example, the game by itself is a mediocre RPG at its best, but thanks to the fan community and their imaginations, the open world game has exploded both in popularity and in playability, with probably over 1,000 different mods you could load all at the same time to improve the game itself. Not only the game, but tell unique stories within the engine of the game, and that's just not possible with a sort of straight line. For an example, God of War game. God of War follows a story from point A to point B, and you kind of have to get there no matter what, meaning you couldn't do the same thing there.
What's going on, everyone? This is your boy Ash the Man, and I am here on J Chip's request to give my share on open world versus linear games. And it's not intentionally saying which one is better, which one is bad, but we have to weigh in the options and seeing what you prefer and what can you take away from this. So to go ahead and get started, when it comes to open world and linear games, sometimes it really does like tread around a story. A lot of like story based games that's like going between these two genres, they really have to make the right choice for them. And most times they seem to go the linear game route when it's especially dealing with the type of story they're dealing with, seeing that you may have some side story like side quests that may, enhance the story experience, or you may not. But it does take time whenever you go in between the two, that it could definitely make a big difference. So especially when it comes to having so much side quests available and maybe so much less. So again, it just goes into your preference in this. But I think the next one definitely tune into like repetitiveness. Repetitiveness is a lot that goes more into like the open world situation, and a lot of people don't like just constantly doing like the same old thing, and pretty much not really getting so much for doing so, even when it feels like a chore. And the repetitiveness really drags away from certain game success when you're doing the same thing over and over again. Now, I do one of the titles that I play a lot is Destiny 2, in which you have to do like your weeklies, your dailies, and sometimes it can feel very repetitive. And if that's the case, it's always going to take away solely focus on the story of that content. So honestly, that's the kind of thing that linear games would benefit from. Now the next thing is is understanding the objective and side mission wise. Now I know I brought this up when it came to like the story focus on the first thing that I talk about, but however, staying on focus of an objective in which the objective will be mainly focusing on like the main story, you can get taken away by doing a ton of side quests, which does open world have available for you to do. And if they lead too many, you'll find yourself doing side quest after side quest after side quest and not really being attuned to the story. In which the story is definitely supposed to be one of the main attractions when it comes to following a video game. But if it does not really have that much focus and it's all about the side quests, usually that turns a lot of players off from like continuing that story fully, and you get so much caught up in the side quests. So you gotta take that into value too. Now the next thing is that when it comes to linear games, sometimes when linear games like not only just be linear but have a certain availability of like an open world thing, because I mean one of the linear like story experience games that really shine in these past few years has been the revamp of God of War. God of War is not totally open world until the end of the game, but you have a lot of side quests that you can do before then, but they not so much being the main focus. Now it can enhance the story, it can bring a lot of benefits to it, but they don't make it so much as a purpose of doing it. You can actually step away, focus on the main story, or just come back and do it when it's available. Now, some side quests, yes, of course, you will have to beat the game first, but I think it's a balance once the linear takes a step away and add a bit of open world to it. It definitely makes a huge difference. And lastly, the one thing that I want to talk about, and probably the most important thing to talk about, is gameplay wise. Now, the open world and linear style of gameplay usually makes a huge difference. Because, for instance, if you have something like a Tales of game, which is not linear, it's open, but they don't leave the combat being too open. Because they want to put you in a scenario where you have to focus just on them enemies. But when you go like full-blown scale open world, so something like a Souls game, you really have to pay attention to your surroundings, because if you have too many enemies in a certain area that could definitely like attack you from behind, surprise attack or anything like that, it would definitely put you at a disadvantage, especially when you're not prepared or ready for that kind of encounter. And these things I think plays a huge part in this. Some ties in with the other one, but they have their own focus. But honestly, if I had to, I really couldn't choose which one I would prefer, because it definitely comes down to more of a preference. But I don't have that much of a preference between the two. I just know that there's times when it shines and when it doesn't. But I also want to give a thanks for J-Chip to have me shine in on this. And you guys take care. Peace.
What's up, nerdlings? Tom and Lady Lacey of Do You Nerd here. Thank you, J-Chip Show, for having us on board to talk about open world games versus linear games. Which experience do we prefer? You know, a good open world game is a lot of fun, because maybe it's a little bit ADD, but, you know, seeing what's over there and, hey, that looks cool, and wait, whoa, where's that thing going over there? I gotta check it all out. Plus, the sense of exploration is always a lot of fun. But what do you think about open world?
I really do like open world as well, but I definitely want to know what I'm doing. I want a task list or a quest list or something, because I do tend to feel a little overwhelmed and lost if I'm just wandering aimlessly. So I do want sort of linear in the open world. Does that make sense?
Fair enough. There is something to be said about a good curated experience with a linear story. When you have a very specific path set, the game developer can tell a richer story, really focus on certain characters that an open world might have you miss out on, and can often provide you with views, vistas, things that you might be running past on the way to the next Korok or something. But ultimately, what do I prefer? I'm going to have to say, as much as I love a good, solid storyline, I really just like a game that gives me the freedom to do whatever I want. So for me, open world.
I would still say open world, definitely, as long as the game creators took the time to randomly put weird crap in. So if you did run over here to this abandoned house, there's something in that house, not just it plopped a house down. So I would probably say open world too, still.
Well, thanks again for having us on board, J-Chip Show. See you later, nerdlings.
Bye, nerdlings.